We already know what we know, but sometimes we just need to listen.
I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again, I want to welcome you to Listen. It's time to be free. A lot going on in this world as far as black folks are concerned, a lot going on in this country as far as black Americans are concerned. And things don't seem to be getting any better. There seems to be a lot more confusion, a lot of unrest. You can just go to the internet and look at all the posts that people are making. Nobody is happy, everyone is upset, people are angry. But where is that anger leading them? Where is that anger leading us? You know, I'm a person who doesn't like to waste time. I'm a person, when I see something that needs to be done, I do it. Or try to do it, try to accomplish something. But I just can't be content complaining about something that has no real end game, that has no solution. That's almost like window shopping to me with no money in my pocket. My wife always wants me, you know, to go shopping with her or go to the mall with her just to look at stuff, even when we don't have that much money. And I'm like, nah, I ain't going. I mean, I can't do that. It doesn't make any sense to me to see something that I want and then I can't have it, okay? When I go to a store, I like to have a pocket full of money. And whatever I see that I want, I just buy. And so when I don't have any money, I'm not going. I can't do that. Maybe it's because I don't have control. I'm uncontrollable, and people that can go and be okay with it, you know, that's good. Maybe that's a gift that I just don't have. So I look at the situation in the nation today, and I just have to think about it. And well, what can we do? What can be fixed? I know, Million Man March to Washington, D.C. What for? Some of my best friends are Muslims in our nation. I don't want to be ragging on anybody, but I have to. But I don't say I'm gonna rag on everybody, but I have to talk about some things today, okay? Now, I'm not trying to play dress up. I'm not trying to just get all sharp, you know, with a short haircut, a line in my head, and a bow tie, and act like I got something going on like that. That's a waste. I worked for NCR Corporation. I wore it for 13 years. I wore a three-piece suit. You know, I had the briefcase, the hat with a feather in it, you know, a trench coat when it was raining. I mean, I've done that. That is nothing. There is nothing to that. They're just clothes. So all this, I got to be out in the street, you know, dressing sharp. What for? Clothes mean absolutely nothing. I mean, I think the problem is, and I love Denzel. I love Malcolm X. I mean, I've studied Malcolm X. I know a lot about the civil rights struggle, the human rights struggle, the interactions of the groups that were going on back in those days. But Malcolm X isn't here. And he wasn't even that Malcolm X, you know, when he left here. And that's just that respect. And I look at the Black Lives Matter movement, who I respect, you know, and I will always support, because they're idealistic and probably most part young people who just don't realize the reality of today, even based on history, that the perpetrators of your ills against you aren't going to be moved by your rantings, okay? Now there was a situation, as we discussed in the last program, with Martin Luther King Jr., but that was a total different situation. That was a situation where the news media was filming stuff, human rights issues. We were getting consternation from other people that were looking at us, other nations were looking at us, and that was pressure. As well, we had situations like we had more radical folks demanding civil rights, that Martin Luther King was more readily embraced by the powers that be because he was a docile Negro. And that's okay. But if it hadn't been for them harsh brothers out there, Martin Luther King probably wouldn't have been as successful as quickly as he was. But all I'm saying is that was a different time. This is a different time today. The year of Obama. Obama's been president. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of people that are open carrying. There's a lot of police that are Aryan folks on the police forces, and a lot of folks that are not aren't willing to tell on them. There's a lot of stuff going on. That just simply marching and banging and protesting and trying to show how many of us there are is not going to do a thing in this world. It's just not happening. Because I see the same thing that we're trying to do today as black people in this nation, as religious folks are doing with a Bible or a holy book that's thousands of years old. Well, how did they do it back then? Well, let's do that now. This ain't now, ain't then. And then wasn't now. This is like we got a situation going on now where you have to be able to analyze the situation that's going on. You understand tactics, understand, maybe look back. If you want to read a book, read The Art of War with Sun Tzu. You know, not really written by Sun Tzu, but look at tactics. Try to figure out human nature. What is it you can do to make things happen? Look at what's going on today. What kind of tools are being used, and what is power in this nation? There is a way. And the way that's being exercised just isn't the way. And in order to make this happen, there's some introspection that black people are going to have to do in order for us to be well. Because the one thing that we can now, the one thing that we can learn from history, even in the black movements and the situations that have happened all along, you know, all this historical line, are that there are sacrifices that people made. There are sacrifices that are necessary. Now, I have a program that I'm trying to put together, an organization that I have put together to make things happen. And you know, we have like we've been operating for about 4 weeks now. It's called ucrproject.org/razor, razor sharp, razor, and just look us up on the internet. So we've been operating actually for about 4 weeks now. And now understand, the situation that we've been in as black folks in this nation has been about 400 years. Now, I think we know black people, our folks, have been complaining and ranting and raving, especially with the internet, learning all this, look what they're doing, look what they've done, look at history, look at all this stuff. But I got some folks that were gung-ho at the beginning, but 4 weeks later I don't think we can do this, you know. I mean, 400 years of oppression to 4 weeks of trying something new. I mean, come on now. We do a lot of ranting and raving. I mean, but it's not about ranting and raving. It's about sacrifice. See, nobody's willing to sacrifice. and there's no changes. Nothing can happen without sacrifice. And I'm not saying jump on the grenade. I'm not talking about sacrifice your life, but sometimes we have to step outside of our comfort level. I'm not saying even jeopardize your livelihood, your job, or whatever, but many people historically have, even to their lives. But we're a generation that loves to complain, loves to post stuff, loves to rant and rave and identify this evil, identify that. Look how they're treating black people. Look how they treat white people. Look how they treat black people. Look how the cops did this guy who they arrested the white guy. Look how they treated the black guy. I mean, I understand that that's true. I've been here a while. I was a teenager in the 70s. I've been picked up. I was picked up in Riverside, walking down the street. I gotta admit, I had an afro, sunglasses. I had a T-shirt with the red, black, and green with the big fist in the middle. I got to admit that. Got picked up. I'm sitting in this car about 20 minutes. I'm like, well, what are you doing? He said, well, we're looking for a black guy. I guess I fit the description. Another time, I think I was about 16, driving in my car, my 62 Comet in Riverside. I'm driving along. Whoop, get picked up. I'm sitting in his car for like 20, 30 minutes. I'm like, well, what am I in here for? He says, we're looking for a black guy with a tank top on. Yeah, I had a tank top on, I guess. I fit to this. You know, so I mean, I am aware of what's been going on. I was a young person during the civil rights movement. I remember when Martin Luther King was killed. I remember when like Bobby Kennedy was killed. I remember many things. And I have older brothers, and so I was familiar with the Black Panthers, and I was familiar with Huey P. Newton, Angela Davis, familiar with Eldridge Cleaver, Kathleen Cleaver. Familiar with a lot of those were my heroes. Actually, those were the pictures on my walls at home. I read Soul on Ice, I think, when I was like 12 years old. So I've been aware. Plus, I have a dad. My father was raised in the Bronx, and my mother came up. Come on, she sharing me about her family and about even the slavery with her grandmothers, or and stuff like that. So I've gotten to hear the stories. And my mother worked a soda fountain in Junction City, Kansas. She knew Jackie Robinson. So I'm not Jackie Robinson. Yeah, Jackie Robinson, the baseball player, when he was an officer in the cavalry at Fort Riley in Kansas. So I've known stories. I remember coming to my dad one day when I was so upset because I hated Martin Luther King, and I didn't understand how he could have just let people slap him around and beat him up and everything that he wanted to do. And I would have gotten guns, and I was that kind of person. I was ashamed of Martin Luther King, and my father explained to me that day how important it was for all those other guys, that Martin Luther King never would have been what he was had it not been for the other guys, and the other guys wouldn't have been where they were had it not been for Martin Luther King, and they had like a symbiotic relationship. And even as I got older, and began to study the civil rights movement, I saw that Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King Jr. were cool, and that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, they had some tenuous moments there, but they weren't really, negative toward each other. And I began to see, even after my father had passed away years later, the truth in what he was telling me that day when I came to him so troubled. So I know about the movements. I know, and so I'm sharing with you today is that there have always been sacrifices. But today we're looking at stuff and we're just willing to identify stuff and trip out about stuff but not do anything. But we have to look historically at any of the changes, any of the positive changes that have happened historically in this nation for black people, and first realize that you cannot duplicate a situation. That's like going back to something you used to have, or going back to somewhere you used to live. I remember when I was a little bit older, I had a buddy in Kansas. He was in Leavenworth, and I went to go visit him. And so I decided to stop at Junction City, Kansas, Fort Riley, to go see the house that we used to live in, when my father was in Vietnam. And I went down that street, and this house was this little bitty box. I couldn't even believe we lived in a house that small. Because I was raised in there, and I was like a happy child, and it was like, you don't even know, as long as you're happy, you don't, a lot of things, we need a big old house, that's the adult, that's the parent speaking, the kids just need to have love. But I was surprised when I went back, the way the house looked, because that sure wasn't the way I remembered it. Things never are. So even as we look back historically on how things were accomplished, we can't do that stuff, what they did. But we can look at how they came up with those strategies, begin to analyze with the same minds they came up with. The strategies they came up with, like Martin Luther King Jr., that was successful, he came up with it because he was analytical, he was thoughtful, he considered what was going on. He realized the situation, and that was the conclusion that he came up with. So what I'm suggesting here is we can't go back and mimic what they did, but we can use the same analyzing strength, the analytical processes that they use to analyze their situation to come up with a different game plan. And so all through our history in this country, folks have done that, black folks. You have to figure out what the game, in other words, figure out what the game is, okay? We saw that in World War II, with the segregated military and the Red Tails. We pretty much seen the movie. I was aware of it. One of my mother's cousins was a Tuskegee Airman, so I'm very familiar. One of my Facebook friends is the son of that man. So I'm familiar with the story of the Red Tails, how they did perfect flying and to escort those bombers, to the point where even in the segregated military where white folks weren't too thrilled about black folks, those bombers sure requested the Red Tails to be escorting them over enemy territory rather than the other escorts they had previously, and they didn't lose a one. So the military, the black folks in the military found out what the game was, perfected the game, and took it over. Basketball the same. You know, there were no black folks playing in basketball. Some guy named Nesmith, I can't remember what his first name was, he invented basketball in the United States. It was an all-white guy sport. What is it now? Baseball the same. Black folks had to come up with their own league, the Negro League. And military courses, we said, you had generals, Benjamin Davis. We had a lot of generals, a lot of top military people. Colin Powell become Secretary of State. Condoleezza Rice. Politics, business, everything. All the way up to President Barack Obama. All black folks have done historically is figured out the game and perfected it. And just handled it, okay? And that's what I'm saying we have to look at today. We have to look at this situation. You know, what's interesting though, and unfortunate, even when we look at like all the gains that were made through every movement the black folks have had in this nation, that there have always been people who were tagging along. People who didn't do a thing. We've always had black folks that were still criminals. Black folks that were still abusers, black folks that were still, you know, just not really participating in the process for freedom, for wellness, but still got to experience the benefits of the sacrifices of other people. And that is the same, I'm sure, will be today. But I'm just suggesting today, if you're fed up with this situation, we need to find another way. And again, I have found another way. Check the website. But yeah, I'll look at the website. I don't know about that. You know, I don't know if I'm willing to sacrifice. Come on, we sacrifice for so many other things. Come on, we sacrifice for what? A house that we want to live in, a car that we want to drive. We sacrifice for the tennis shoes that we want to wear. We sacrifice for, I know this is like as a mailman. How people spend money like crazy on anything. And then when a stamp goes up to 41 cents, they want to trip out. What? That's highway robbery. You can put a 40-cent stamp on a piece of paper, put it in the mail, and 3 days later it'll be in Alaska. Don't you find that amazing? But we're going to complain. We complain about the most silliest things, and we'll blow money. So we'll sacrifice everything that we earned on things that are combustible, things that will burn up, things that we'll no longer have. I'm just suggesting there are some things we just need to do. First thing we need to do is to realize that we limit ourselves too often based on our own fears. In other words, we have to push ourselves to go beyond what is comfortable to us. That's the only way. I mean, it's not, things are not comfortable, and so what? To me, I know we're different, and for my personality, when I see a challenge, I put myself out there to where it's too late to come back. I remember when I was a kid, my brother and I, he was a couple years older than me, and we were taking swimming courses and all this. We went to the swimming pool one day, and it was easy jumping off that low dive, right? And so we're going to go to the high dive. So I'm right behind him, and he walks up the ladder. You know, back in the old days, there'd be kids lined up just to jump off that high dive, right? This was the first time for both of us, so he climbs up that ladder. He's like 3 years older than me, so I guess I was probably about 10. He was like probably 13 or something. And he walks out, and he's walking slow. He walks over to the edge. This is the high dive, and he looks down. And he's like, everybody's, come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. He ain't going. He walks back, comes down the ladder, doesn't go. My big brother. So I'm still sitting there, man. I was kind of excited about going, but I was scared too, but I was excited about going. So I went up there and I walked. And like him, I walked to the edge. And I looked down and I'm thinking, man, that's a far way down. Because this show looked a lot further down when you're standing up there than it does when you're, when you're standing on the ground looking at the high dive, But I thought about this. I thought to myself, if I just step off this high dive, there ain't no going back. I understood gravity well enough. All I got to do, I don't have to do much. I don't have to do anything to get down to that water. I don't have to do anything. All I got to do is just step off this thing. Everything else, it'll be too late to turn back. And that's what I did. I just stepped off. That was it. And the lesson that I learned that day, I was like 10 years old, the great lesson that I learned that day is that you don't, I don't know if it's brave or what, but if you step out beyond from which you could go back, You got no choice but to keep going, okay? And that's what I've been doing ever since, man. You know, I spoke to those kids at juvenile detention. I was like motivating those kids for like 17 years every week. Man, the first couple of times I was scared to death. Come on, I mean, I was just a normal guy up in the world. I didn't even care about young people. I'd just get a buzz, chill out. You know, with my buddies, one of those kind of guys. But now I'm standing here sober, you know, straight, you know, and no buzz and nothing in front of like 80 young people that are looking for me to say something. It was like, okay, I just stepped out there. Now what are you going to do? Start crying? You either perform or you perform. And so I just performed. I've been in churches and I've stepped out before people, you know. People that I'm looking in the audience, they're older than me. They're wiser than I am. They have a notepad and a pencil in their hand waiting for me to say something. It's like, this guy should be teaching me something. It's like, just step out there. It's too late to go back. And you just start going. And so I'm saying today, this is the key for us as black folks, man. There's always going to be something that's going to be that, oh no, maybe not. Oh man, are you sure? Oh, these little whispers in your, but come on now, how else is it going to work? What it's going to take is all of us to come together in unity and to mobilize and to make something happen. We can't do this by ourselves. We can't do this as individuals. We can't do this with ulterior motives. We can go forward and we can make this thing happen. I started this organization it's called the Razor, but it's under the UCR Project, ucrproject.org/Razor. It's to build up people, build up membership. Thousands upon thousands. And I had the idea, man, I mean, I was kicking back, you know, trying to come up with some kind of fix for the community. And I had some people with me, and we were trying to work on this, and we recognized the ills that we had in our community. And I was like, man, yeah, that's a lot of ills. And so we all are in agreement that I think we all are as black people in this nation. We see what's going on. We see what's happening. You know, white folks aren't getting drug out of their car, you know, shot, killed, you know, beat up terribly. Neither are the Koreans, neither are Jewish folks, neither is anybody else. It's just us. Just us, right? Just us. And it's not like this is anything new. We know that. The new thing is that there are smartphones now, okay? Things are being recorded. So we know the issues that we have. Plus we have the issues in our community. Politics are jacked up for us. The police force, they don't seem to care. We don't have any money. We don't have any power. We have store owners that are making money in the black community and taking that money right out of the community. We don't own anything. As far as weapons are concerned, they can say what they want about violence, but less than 3% of the weapons in this nation are owned by black folks. And 65+% of the hate crimes are against black folks. So you do the math. You figure it out. So you know, we're just in a jacked up situation here. And so I'm thinking, so we know that. So I'm thinking, well, you know, what can we do? And I went to this little birthday party for like the pastor's wife recently, and I ran into this elderly gentleman, this brother there who's retired. He's been like a teacher in the city for years, and he was a principal in the city for years, and he's a friend of mine. And we were talking about this, and man, this guy was such a wealth of knowledge. I'm like, how come you didn't tell me this stuff before? He told me about black history, and he's telling me about the things, even in Dayton, because I'm not from here, how this place used to be jamming, and he was telling me about some of the other things that are being done by people that have come into the community that are taking the money out of the community. And he was giving me this idea that somehow we need to get black people together to maybe put some of their money together, maybe in a savings account or something, and wait for about 10 years, keep putting money in there, and then be able to buy some. And I mean, that sounded good, but that sounded too small. That sounded too little. But that was, I understood where he was coming from, because this is why we need to come together, because we all have ideas, but nobody has the idea. But we have a compilation of ideas, but black folks, we're so separated, we're so divided, we get so jealous-hearted over each other, we get so greedy, you know, we see something, well, I got to get more, or something like, we always messing it up. That's why we have nothing. Then without having to digress too much, I was studying, you know, there were like over 200 known slave revolts in this nation from the beginning of slavery toward the end. I mean, of course, there were little runaways, but big, you know, like Nate Turner, you know, there were like big slave revolts, about 200 and some of them. Every one of them were foiled because another black person told on them. 100%, every one. This is where we at. You kind of jacked up. We want things to change. We got to change. We got to change. Some of us, that has just got to be the sacrifice. Some might need to sacrifice money. Some might need to sacrifice attitudes. Some just might need to sacrifice their particular personality or character traits and just not betray each other. That's a heck of a sacrifice. That right there, man. So to me, I have an organization that is, I was looking, so I decided, well, how could we raise a lot of members? Because it was more than members. I was thinking of the NRA, okay? And I was thinking about the power of the NRA. Because recently I got my CCW, my concealed carry license. And it was amazing because the whole, where you have to go through the class to be sanctioned by the state. Well, I don't know how all the classes are, but the class I went to, it was an NRA class. So the NRA has its hands with the government because the government is not going to issue you a license unless you've passed the NRA class, which you have to pay, I don't remember what it was, $100 and some just to take. And so that was interesting. And then to get your actual license, you had to pay like $70 to the county. But the NRA got a big chunk of that. So this guy, the teacher, which is a really cool guy in this class I was in, he's an NRA certified teacher. I'm sure he had to pay for his training, and I'm sure that whatever comes out of the class, a lot of that goes to the NRA. So you see, and they're on this membership drive. They have thousands and thousands, and look how the political strength and the political power the NRA has. And so I'm thinking, well, the NRA, what was their goal? Their goal was just so everybody would have guns? No, they don't care about that. I mean, sure, there's a money side to it. There's a power side to it. There are political agendas to it. So what they're putting out there, well, your family needs to be protected. Hey, you better watch out for all those black people. Well, it's really interesting and kind of funny. Now, when I went to that class, so I could get my certificate, I was kind of nervous because it's like, because we see all these folks out there that are mad at black people that are carrying guns around. I'm thinking, okay, now it was like early Saturday morning. I'm on my way, to like Dayton to Wayne Avenue. I'm thinking, man, that's all I need to get kidnapped over here, be a live target for some, So, I mean, my imagination was going. But then I got there, these people were like really cool and everything. I mean, they were cool. After I got there, it was like cold in the room when I walked in because I was like about a minute before class started, so everybody was sitting there. And then I showed up, and I looked a little bit different than the rest of them. And so it was kind of tense there for a minute when I walked in, but after about, 10, 15 minutes, everything was cool, and I was cool and laughing with the folks, and everything was cool, and I enjoyed that class. But you could tell that a lot of the material was geared toward people who were not like me. Like a lot of the targets. Okay, but they were cool. They made sure, even when we were going through the little, simulated targets, how a body pops up, with an X, don't shoot that guy, but you have to shoot the right one. They had a bunch of black folks, targets. They had a bunch, like Osama bin Laden, he was a target too. So they did go there, I think maybe for my benefit, found the one guy in there, he was a white guy with a mullet, and we used him as the target. I think they did it for my sake, because he was flipping through them trying to find a good target for us to practice on. But we were looking at, but this was NRA sponsored and class. And it was a very good class, very informative, and I learned a lot of stuff, and I'm so glad I took that class. I mean, I'm glad I got my license, but I hadn't fired a gun since the military, since back in the 70s. But it was an excellent class. But some of the material was like, again, geared toward people who weren't like me. And like, I remember they were interviewing, on this video, these black guys that were in prison. They had about 5 of them sitting around there. So you think when you get out, you're going to go back out and you're going to get a gun and you still commit crimes? Yeah, probably, and all that, right? Of course, you're right. But then later on, it was like 10 minutes after that, they were giving these stats because we were in a new section. And it was saying like 73% of the gun issues where an individual is going to have to shoot someone in their own home is going to be either family or friends. So, most of these guys don't have black folks as family or friends, but the examples, and 73% of the people that you're going to have to shoot in your home is going to be family or friends. Yet for the examples that are motivating people, for this class is that we got black people out here that are criminals. You know what I'm saying? And I brought that up. Now, I didn't want to say anything that was going to jeopardize me flunking this class, so I tried to keep quiet. But you know me if you've been watching this program. I asked them, well, if 73% of the people are family and friends, then them guys they just interviewed are probably not going to be the ones that are going to be breaking them houses, right? Well, yeah. And moving right along. So as I began to examine deeply, the NRA was using a lot of emotional triggers to incite folks into purchasing guns, into being gun owners, and it's really worked well for them. But that was not their initial purpose. That is not their underlying purpose. It is power. It is money. And this is the way it's accomplished, okay? And so we need to see that. We need to realize that there's only two things in this nation that's going to actually one thing that's going to protect black folks or change the situation of black folks running this nation, and that's power. Okay. And the only thing that generates power in this nation, in a type nation such as ours, is money. Okay. And those are the two things that we just don't have. We don't have money and we don't have power. They can say, well, there's a black president, here's a black this, black that. Yeah, but we're talking about en masse. Okay? There has to be power. And the only thing that generates that power is money. Okay? And now there's two things that generate that power. It's either going to be money or it's going to be bodies. And between the two, power is the most effective, and it's generated by money, it's generated by bodies. If you don't have money, you need to have bodies. But those bodies have to be unified. They have to be mobilized. And that's what we learned from the NRA. They have done a wonderful thing. They have done an amazing thing by unifying all these people from different walks of life into this one particular organization. You know, by affecting them here, by affecting them there. You know, these people, are worried about black people coming into their homes. These people are here just worried about people on the street. These people here just want their kids to be protected. These people here, just the whole Second Amendment, they're constitutionalists. Whatever the situation is, they're hitting these people, hitting these people, hitting these people. So they're not missing anybody. Maybe except black folks. They're pulling on those emotional strings of everybody. Not because they really are concerned about any of those situations, but they realize that it will unify these people under one NRA, and that's the body of power that they have that generates the lobby that they have in Washington, D.C., and generates the power that they have all over this nation. It's the members. It's the membership. But see, we as black people have a difficulty there, having a difficulty being members of anything, okay? But we have to look at something that's already functioning. And the NRA was a perfect example that hit me about 5 weeks ago, what they're doing and how they've done it. And so I've tried to create something similar in a way to unify us. Because I was using that idea of that gentleman that said we have to come together because the only way, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, a little bit of money there, and then, in about 5 or 10 years we will buy something. And that was a good idea. But it was much too small. It wasn't going to work that way. So I'm thinking, then in what way? So in a sense, in a large sense, the NRA is using sort of a network marketing concept. Not the money concept where you buy into this, and we've all done network marketing. I've done it, you've done it, many people have done network marketing, and that's a greed-based concept that doesn't work for anybody but the guy on the top. But the concept works. The concept is say you're a doctor, and say you were in Africa, and this entire village of 100 square miles, a pretty large village, is infected by some kind of disease. Now you have the antidote, but there's just you and your buddy that wants to inoculate this entire village. So what would you do? Just go from door to door? You know how long that would take? No, what you do is you get like 3 people. Inoculate them. Tell each person, go out and just bring 3 people back. Each of those 3 would bring 3 people back. The next day, you would have those 3, plus you would have 9 others. Okay? Then have all of those go out. And say each week, because they had to walk all the way back to their village, each week they had to do that. Bring them back, bring them back, bring them back. If each person that went out came back with 3 people, in 7 weeks you would have 2,187 people. You would get that village inoculated in a matter of a couple months. That's the whole, how do I know this? Because I was in Excel. I was in a network marketing business years ago, and I kind of blew it up to a point, and I used to give a presentation every week. And that's what hit me that night. I say, so how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? How do we get members? How do we get members like the NRA has members? And it hit me. Man, I'm sitting there trying to figure this, trying to figure that. I already know. I did this business for years. I know this process. It's the network marketing process. Same process Jesus used. You had 12 disciples. Send them out. Send them out. You read in one scripture, he had 12 disciples, right? But you go on a little further, there were 70 disciples. Go on a little further, there were hundreds of disciples. It was the concept. It was the concept. See, we get all this negative about network marketing because of the greed, like the businesses that we have. But the concept as far as drawing members, if you just use it to draw members, man, it's an amazing concept that in no time you could inoculate that entire village. In no time you can build an organization as large as the NRA. In no time. But here go black people again. Well, hey, I'm going to do one of my own. Yeah, I'm going to do one of my own. We're all going to do one. And say, everybody, and hey, I'm just going to, whatever happens, anything generated, man, that's going to make more money, more money. No, we have to come to a point where we stop thinking about ourselves so much. We have to come to a point where we have to think about the bigger picture. What can we do? What kind of movement can we do nowadays that's really going to make a difference? And the key is it's power and money and membership. Look at the NRA as the perfect example. Look at all the little excuses they're using to draw people into their organization. We can too. I'm doing this too. My website, ucrproject.org/razor. Okay, that's a gun club, okay? There's an entrepreneur club. There's a business club. There's a self-defense club. There's a, go to the website and see, there's a whole bunch of clubs on there. Trying to unify us into a political force, into a political party. I was talking to the brother about the gun club because I put a brother over the gun club, a friend of mine. And I'm saying this is like very important. Because I was telling you guys about it in Ferguson, how you got those guys down there, I think they're called the Oath Keepers, white guys walking around with assault rifles in a black neighborhood making sure black people stay in their houses at night. My perspective is there should be just as many black folks walking around with assault rifles, maybe 2 to 1. To those guys that are in their neighborhoods. You know, like the balance of power and all, you know. And what I like to see is, what I see is even as we get armed legally, there's a responsibility to that. Because even when you're armed legally, man, like I am, you know, there are so many rules that you can lose your license so easy. It was like that, and I shared this in the last program when I got my license. I don't drink and I don't beat my family, so I don't have to worry about losing it like that. But I found myself trying to do better, trying to drive safer, just trying to, and so there's something about when you start doing something right, it makes you want to do right. Too often we've been hiding around, looking over a corner, a cop gets in the, we're looking in the rear view mirror, we got all these worries, all these paranoias going on. It's time for us to be, you know, not to be doing things that can get ourselves jammed up, okay? To become better citizens, to become aware of our surroundings and do more than we can. What I like to see is, initially, I like to see like 100 people in this gun club. Then I'd like to see 1,000 people. Legally armed black men in this city. Then 5,000. For real, strong. I'm serious. I'd like to see 10, 15, 20,000 members in this UCR, in this Razor organization that I'm trying to create. Imagine that. We need unity. We need to be able to sacrifice. We need to be able to go beyond that which we think we cannot go. We need to, those limitations, those self-imposed limitations, we can do more. My attitude, sort of like when I was going into the military, I was 17 years old on my way to boot camp. And I was kind of nervous. Now, all my brothers had been military, my father military. You know, we're a military family, and so I came to Dayton, right, Patterson. Still a little nervous, 17 years old. Then one day I was out at the base, and before I went, and I was looking around at all these guys that were actually in the military, younger GIs. And I was looking at how out of shape they were. Of course, I was in my heyday in the martial art. I was pretty, you know, pretty fit, pretty good condition. And I'm looking at these guys that were kind of out of shape, and these were military people, and I'm like, if they could make it through boot camp, I can make it through boot camp. And so maybe this is what I want to leave you with, as far as an encouragement. Because a lot of times what we have are insecurities. We can't see ourselves doing things that other people can do. But I'm telling you that everyone is insecure. Everyone has those insecurities. You know, we talk about bravery. What is brave? A brave person isn't a person that doesn't have fear. Because if you didn't have fear, that wouldn't be brave. A brave person is a person that, in spite of the fear, still steps out and does what needs to be done. That's what brave is. We need to be brave. So we need to stop thinking that in order for me to be brave, I can't have fear. Because that's not brave. It's only brave when there is fear. So whatever the insecurities are, whatever those things, in the back, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. Yeah, well, nobody can. But when you look at somebody that has, what have they got? They've got one head, two arms, two legs. They're no different than you, all except that they just stepped out and did it, okay? And so we have a long journey ahead of us, but it can be an exciting journey. It could be something that we can accomplish this with, and we can make a movement today that people will look back and read in their history books about. Yeah, that started in Dayton, Ohio. We can do this. And what I'm telling you today is, like I had that one brother that started with me, and he kind of really encouraged me to begin with, and that's good. Because he was a radical brother, and looking at this website, look at this, these people this, white people this, black people this, all the stuff they did, and this is in the history books and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, man. Fell away 4 weeks later. That doesn't matter. That was good for that moment. It's sort of like that booster rocket. The old-fashioned rockets that used to shoot up, they used that with the long rockets, and they'd fire off and shoot off when they get to a certain altitude, and this particular piece would fall away because it did its job to get it past the atmosphere, and by the time it was done, it was just the capsule that was up there in space because all the pieces had done their job to get that capsule to where it should be. So I ain't hating that brother, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been on this particular path. But what I'm telling you now is if nobody is with me. Back in Martin Luther King's day, man, if nobody was with him, he'd be kind of jacked. But I'm saying with the World Wide Web, I'm not stopping with this little city, even though what I accomplish will help this little city. But I would like to see this little city be behind this, and thousands of our brothers and sisters from this city be part of this as I begin to expand this organization into the rest of the state, into the rest of the nation, and even worldwide. That is my plan. Sounds kind of crazy, sounds kind of out there. I was sitting with a group of young people, and when I say young, I mean between like 25 and 35 or so years old. And I was telling them, you talk about Martin Luther King, and you maybe talk about Gandhi, or maybe you talk about all these people that we read about in history books that have done such great things. They were no different than you and I. They laughed, they cried. They were concerned, they worried. They were motivated, they were discouraged. They're no different than we are. They just stepped out even while experiencing intimidation, even while experiencing the inferiorities or maybe the inability to do something. They just stepped out anyway, and guess what had happened? Now we read about them, something about history, it makes people larger than life, that they were all this and all that, man. Martin Luther King Jr. was just a regular man. He had strengths, but he had weaknesses as well. No different than you or I, but he stepped out and did what needed to be done. We can do that. We have an opportunity. We're in a different time than he was. We're going to do it a different way, but we're going to do this thing. And I would like you to tag along. I would like you to be part of this process. How's that?